Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Rounding up the Spanish pre-release tech tree that we're currently having is the Tier 5. I'm not really going to look at the Tier 3 because honestly, most people are probably going to play these things maybe for a game or two, but then move on very quickly. So at Tier 5 here, we have the Galicia, a light cruiser, and a ship that for a change actually existed, because she was designed in the 1920s and built by the Spanish, but designed, as was sort of customary at the time, by the British, and by none other than the design team of Sir Philip Watts, who has been responsible for things like the Dreadnought. The British knew a thing or two about designing light cruisers, so Spain was asking, but did make a lot of modifications if you compare it to contemporary British ships at the time. And at the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War, the Galicia was actually one of the most active ships in the Republican Navy. Now, the commanding officers were somewhat nationalist-leaning, so the crew in best revolutionary fashion had them shot and took over the ship themselves. And she was the lead ship of the Republican Navy. Among others, took on the Baleares, a heavy cruiser, in a duel, and came out, well, not on top, but came out not too much the worse for wear. She did survive the Spanish Civil War and was in the end returned to the Franco regime, at which point she didn't start out as Galicia. But she was renamed Libertad by the Republicans and then was later named Galicia after she had been returned after the Civil War and stayed in service up until, I think, about the 1970s when she was finally scrapped. So it's very refreshing to see a ship that actually existed for a change and had somewhat of an active history, even though she didn't actually do anything in World War II on account of Spain not really doing very much there, because the whole thing was already done with and they had enough problems at home. Anyway, given that this is technically a British design, even though it was built by the Spanish, we are going to have a quick comparison with the Emerald, the British Tier 5 light cruiser, and see how they differ. The Galicia does not get the salvo fire, burst fire thing. I think that starts at Tier 7, although we haven't seen the Tier 6 yet, but I think it starts at Tier 7. She does, however, get a sonar compared to the Emerald's smokescreen, and the Emerald has the single fire torpedoes. The hulls are relatively similar. The Galicia is a little lower on hit points, so you don't have an awful lot of hit points. You are a very light cruiser. She's also taking a bit of a shorter straw in terms of both speed and maneuverability, which is unusual because usually you trade one for the other. But the guns, those are fun. Now the Emerald has the single turrets still, single barrel turrets, whereas the Galicia has 4 twins. They do have an over 1 second faster base reload, they have a better range, and they do better damage on the armor piercing than the Emerald. Given that the British can only fire armor piercing, the Galicia can still also fire high explosive, which if you are shooting at battleships at long range is a good choice. Otherwise the armor piercing is generally considered to be superior. Now torpedo-wise, she only gets half the Emerald's torpedo loadout. They do reload a bit faster, do a bit more damage, have a bit better range, but you don't get the Emerald is technically an oversized destroyer, and the Galicia is a bit more of a gunboat really here, but it does help to learn how to use the armor piercing on these ships, because the armor piercing on the Spanish ships is just superior. The AA is absent, but not that the AA on the Emerald matters really, and the concealment is a little bit better. So I would say you're not totally amiss to describe it as a gunboat Emerald. Like I said, you don't actually get the burst fire mode, which is a bit of a shame, but that's what it is. However, you get to choose between Getting yourself main battery traverse and large caliber AA damage, which given that this ship I think has no large caliber AA, yeah. 5% extra on nothing still makes nothing. Slow clap here for that one. So I would recommend going just with the main battery reload instead. It's tier 5, so I don't think you can actually get a historical camo. No, you can't. But equipment-wise, you don't have an awful lot of choice. You could try to go with main battery mod 2 for a faster reload, for a full gunboat build. I've actually taken the turret traverse module just because the turrets are very sluggish and you are in a very light cruiser in which you have to navigate a lot. The rest is the obvious setup, so you want propulsion and you want steering in too. With that setup, we are getting the turn time down to just over 6 seconds, which is okay, workable. And you do need to play very carefully because tier 5 light cruisers are very squishy. So they sink out of embarrassment if battleships just as much as look at them funny. Commander does not really make an awful lot of a difference here just yet, so just make sure that you're sort of building towards the higher tier, given that we don't really know yet what tier 10 is going to be like. I think, yeah, it's a coin toss really at this point, what you want to go for. And the ships have both a sonar and def AA, so the battlefield support is usually a decent choice. But yeah, other than that, we'll really have to see first what the top tiers are going to look like to decide if it makes sense to take the air defense expert, or if the AA is just too bad and it doesn't make a huge difference. Yeah, that's that. So we'll have 2 games, one with no historical camouflage, one with premium consumables and a 12-point captain, and the other one just with a regular setup. And we'll be putting the Seaborne Assault camo on, as you would expect somebody to use who doesn't have any other camos. Although at this point in the game, I think free camos from Blitz Pass and everything else are so prevalent that I might actually have to change my default here to whatever's coming. But I'm not going to make it look like that, because this is a very Japanese look, and it doesn't give any bonuses whatsoever. So Seaborne Assault plain old is just what we're going to go with. Yeah. Not an awful lot else to say about the Galicia. Maybe one thing we can have a very quick look at is the battle honors, because we haven't really looked at these yet on the Spanish line, I think. So it's play games, win battles, and destroy 15 enemy cruisers, which is an interesting one. But then again, you can really skip over the battle honors up to tier 7, because that's when they start giving you materials. So let's have a look at tier 7, what it is that they want. So win a couple of games, 30 times citadel damage. That is actually an interesting. Well, the battle honors can sometimes give you a little bit of an idea of what the ships are meant to be doing and how they're meant to be played. So yes, they are armor piercing ships, and that sounds doable. Sink 25 cruisers and cause a grand total of 900,000 HP of damage. So it's your typical grind, but gives you a couple of shipyard resources. And let's have a very quick look at tier 9 as well and see what's coming in here. And yeah, it's the same story. So on the Andalucia, this one, 50 citadel hits, without the APCS Plus is going to be an absolute pain, because it's tier 9. You're not going to find... You can't even citadel light cruisers. Heck, you can't even full penetrate light cruisers until they're point blank, fully broadside, sitting still. So yeah, I don't think so. And the rest is just cruisers, damage, and 4 citadels in a battle. So... Either the tier 9 is going to get an AP pen buff at some point, or this will require you to have the legendary commander to make that happen. But we're not talking about tier 9 today. We're talking about the Galicia at tier 5. In the first round, we are bottom tier, and I think we are one of the enemy team has 1 tier 5 with the Congo. We actually have 3 tier 5s. But we are facing Ryujo, Bayern, New Mexico, enemy Congo, Kirkdine, an Eagle, and a Farragut. On Aurora in base capture. And yes, you're very much not an AA cruiser, so don't even try. But what you probably really want to do is use the armor piercing on these ships, because the armor piercing is very, very good. Aurora means plenty of battleships out there, relatively open map. We have to be a little careful and maybe not take point in that light cruiser. But first thing I'm going to do is switch to armor piercing, torpedoes to narrow spread. And as you can see, the torpedo angles on these ships are very, very good. They have that in common with the French and the Italian cruisers. They have really excellent torpedo angles. And the torpedoes are nice, but the guns and the armor piercing is where it's really at. Just be very careful that you have no armor and a relatively low hit point pool. And you're in a light cruiser, bottom tier. You probably don't want to rush ahead. But enemy carrier so far isn't scouting. So right now I'm just checking where the carrier is going. If he's scouting my way and I'm in danger of actually being spotted, then I'll stay behind this island here. So I've got a Piotr Veliki with me. So we will be escorting that. Battleship. The carrier is not going to air spot me, so the enemy team does not yet know who's coming. But there are two enemy destroyers out there, so there's a decent chance that one of them is around that side here. Hello, Mr. New Mexico. So over to high explosive, see if we can set a fire. And already slowing down, because I do want the Piotr Veliki to take point. Dispersion, it can be a little hit and miss, but and New Mexico isn't paying any attention so far. Piotr Veliki can go first and he can tank, and I'll just try to set some fires from here on until I'm at a point where I can more reliably use the armor piercing against battleship weak spots, because the fires don't do much. Oh, hello, Mr. Farragut. I see you. That's my call. Hello there. Armor piercing back. He does smoke up, but I don't think he's slowing down sufficiently. Now, is he dropping torpedoes on me? I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I can spot them. Yep, there come the torpedoes. Sonar is running, and that is not a problem to avoid these. We've got 3 torpedo hits on the New Mexico, and Farragut is going dark behind an island. Where'd my Piotr Veliki go? Okay, let's drop some more torpedoes on the New Mexico while we are avoiding the Farragut's torpedoes. And there is a destroyer hitting the friendly capture circle, so I do have to stay a little behind here and try to avoid being shot at. But at this range, armor piercing into the bow or stern section of battleships is the way you want to go with the ship, because that's how you're doing your damage. Unless, of course, they just straight up elude your torpedoes, and then they are dead. Still keeping an eye on the friendly capture circle. There is a battleship there in a point-blank engagement with an enemy destroyer. There is still a Farragut out there somewhere, and he might have gone the long way around. Okay, the Fuso has taken down the enemy Eagle by some miracle. I don't know what he's been doing. There's still a Farragut out there, however. So in case he's been going the long way. No, actually no, he hasn't. He was just spotted up north. I'm not sure if I actually noticed that when I was playing. I don't think I did, because I am actually returning towards a defensive position against that Farragut coming in, while just hailing some fire down, and he is actually coming down this way. Hello, Mr. Farragut. Okay, he's not coming down the long way, so now we are getting into position to do something about this guy. And if you're in a destroyer, be very afraid of these guns, because there are plenty of them and they reload relatively quickly. And if I can actually hit him, then that is going to hurt. Like I said, the dispersion at long ranges isn't great. You do have to get a little closer than is generally comfortable. He's shooting at me again, so I'm switching on the sonar just in case he's dropped torpedoes at me. But he's actually dropped our battleships, but he's been relatively obvious about it, so we're keeping him at bay, and that's really what we're here for. So long range fire out at Farragut is not too effective unless he is sailing in a straight line, which this Farragut captain definitely isn't, so he knows what he's doing. But we're keeping him away from the Congo, and I think we're 2 kills ahead. Yeah, he smokes up again. We're 2 kills ahead, so I think we're relatively safe here. Enemy carrier is dead, so these planes are not gonna strike anything. Farragut is now getting into an assault position to our friendly Congo here. So we'll see if we can dissuade them from that approach. Congo, you definitely notice that there's Farragut, right? He's right there. Congo is shooting at him. He might not have the torpedoes ready, but give me one more salvo and then that Farragut is dead, unless Congo takes him out first. There he goes. Congo's noticed him because, you know, obvious destroyer is obvious, is avoiding the torpedoes. And we now have the Kirkstein to play with. We have similar health, so let's get into a shooting match. Now here comes the fact that you are in a very lightly armored light cruiser. But I've got the torpedoes away. I'm not sure if he's aware if I have yeah, he's got sonar up, so he's going to notice these torpedoes coming. But I've shot his engine off, and it does distract him. And despite the fact that he's actually noticed him, he's taken one. But still, I'm running a little low on hit points. But given that he has been distracted by having to avoid my torpedoes, I've come out on top of that one, and there we are. Very fun little light cruiser. Very fun. Not sure if it's going to be taking the top spot, because it does have to contend with ships like Königsberg. But it's a good little all-rounder, I would almost say, for Tier 5, and can do a decent amount of damage. The second round is, I think, an almost flat-out Tier 5 game. I think the only Tier 4 is the Wyoming on our side. Sometimes I really don't understand how matchmaking comes up with these ideas, but it is, again, a carrier game, but we're playing on Sand and Sea, so that map is so small you're going to be spotted anyway. We're up against Zuiho, New York, Conte de Cavour, Yahagi, Okhotnik, Minekaze, and Akasta. I have no clue what the Yahagi was capable of. I mean, it's Japanese, it's going to drop torpedoes, but short of that, I completely forgot. There are so many premiums out there by now that I just can't remember all of them. Anyway, this is Sand and Sea, so everyone's going to be spotted pretty much immediately. And there are 3 enemy destroyers, so armor piercing, narrow torpedo spread, and we will defend this gap here. Drop some predictive torpedoes out at the island. Hello, yeah, I noticed you. And obviously the New York is immediately spotted there, and we're already spotted ourselves, so we may as well start shooting things. Hello, Mr. Minekaze. Yeah, you're the one I've been waiting for, because there was guaranteed to be at least one destroyer coming through here. And as a light cruiser, what you really want to do here is make sure that these destroyers don't go anywhere. Do be careful if you are broadsiding enemy battleships, because it's time to slow down, get the sonar up to see where his torpedoes are going, then sink the Minekaze, avoid his torpedoes. Be careful if you are giving broadside to battleships, because yeah, they can end you. So Tier 5 light cruiser, very much. Next up, so that's one destroyer down. I'm not sure where the other 2 are. I think one of them is on the other side. So the third one, okay, I've seen the Akasta. Okay, Akasta and Okhotnik are over there, so this flank's pretty open. Let's hammer that Yahagi into submission. Obviously, obvious Japanese ship has torpedoes, probably. So we do have to be a little careful, because my sonar is now on cooldown. So I'm going to slow down here and just see if there are any torpedoes coming, which gives me a good opportunity to start shooting at the Okhotnik. Okhotnik has extremely short-range torpedoes, so he needs to get up close and personal with people. That thing has a decent amount of guns, but they're no good. They're no good unless you're sailing away from things. And there are some airdrop torpedoes coming in from the left. Yeah, AA support is not something we can do, but that Okhotnik obviously has somewhat overextended and is going to die. Maybe he can take the Mutski with him. It looks like the Mutski has avoided most of his torpedoes and has actually taken him out with gunfire. That leaves the New York over there, and never mind, New York's there too. That leaves the Akasta over there, which is the other destroyer that is left, and the carrier. So we might as well head towards the enemy capture circle at this point, because I have the range of shooting at the Akasta. I am going to be well outside torpedo range of the Akasta, and the Akasta is not making things too hard by sailing in a straight line, but he is sailing outside my effective range. But I'm going to let my team deal with that, I think, at this point. We're just going to have to dodge the incoming carrier torpedoes, which is trivial. With the acceleration mod, you just slow down a little at this tier. And Actually, you know what? There's 2 destroyers going. Let's finish off the Zuiho, and then we don't need to go Cap. I'll already orient myself towards the other side to deal with the 3rd destroyer in the game, since we've already more or less dealt with the Minikaze and with the Okhotnik. This is the APCS build, by the way, so as you can see, even the 150s against things like carriers are quite spicy, the armor piercing on these. The enemy destroyer has broken through by the looks of it. Zuiho is dead, which means he's no longer controlling his airplanes. And the Emerald is going back for the Akasta. That's all good. I can actually just collect some capture points here. So now it's just a question, can we cap them out first, or is the Emerald going to catch the Akasta? The Galicia is a fun mid-tier light cruiser. It doesn't have any special skills, and so you don't get the burst mode or anything. The sonar is quite useful, and you get a decent amount of charges on it. Very low hit points, but that's something that you should be used to when playing mid-tier light cruisers. Probably not going to take the crown of light cruisers at tier 5, but it's up there. It's a very good mid-tier light cruiser. Rapid-firing guns with good armor-piercing performance. Very dangerous against destroyers with the sonar, with the combo that and sonar. And pretty dangerous against battleships as well. It doesn't quite have the same torpedo loadout that you have on others, but a decent range on these torpedoes, very good angles. So it's a good all-round light cruiser at mid-tier. Definitely a ship I'd be playing, and a fun little boat. And it actually existed, so there's that. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.